Hey all you minties, this is the Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and today join me as I do an overview of The Flash by Geoff Johns Omnibus Volume 1. This is a new printing and I'm going to be comparing it to the original Omnibus printings, so please stay tuned. Okay, so this is the new release of Flash by Geoff Johns Omnibus. This just recently came out in mid-December, and you all wanted me to do a comparison video. Now, before I get started, I will say that I am a sucker for this run. So much so that I bought the original singles when they came out. I bought the first edition of the trades. I bought the second edition of the first trade paperback. I bought the omnibus, and now I'm buying this. So I'm like quadruple dipping. So this is the original omnibus right here. As you can probably tell, it is a lot thinner because it doesn't cover as much, so the mapping is completely different. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that this is not a reprint of the Omnis. This is a brand new mapping. It's a brand new omnibus altogether. So that's not the only difference I notice. I think one of the most interesting things I notice is that the original Omnis, this one and this one here, the one in the middle is the new printing, they seem to be longer. Not just the board itself, but the actual pages. A lot more in Volume 1 and a little bit in Volume 3. Now, it could be because of the eye and the ribbon here, because of the glued binding. We'll talk about the binding here in a second. I mean, obviously, the board is longer, and that's something I've never really noticed on these Flash or any of these older omnibus from DC that I own. Here it is compared to Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens omnibus, and that makes sense right there. This omnibus looks like it's just a little bit longer, but that's because of the curve right here on the actual spine and that ribbon. Whereas this has the glued, it keeps it from curving. So that actually makes a little more sense. So I did want to point that out before moving forward. So here is the spine of the book, right here. I kind of like that Scott Collins artwork. It's kind of big, honestly. He stands out. Maybe they'll be doing that for future DC character Omnis. Back here, looks like Ethan Van Sciver. And then, of course, the front cover by Brian Bolland. As a matter of fact, Brian Bolland supplies all the covers here. And here's this nice image by Scott Collins, who's one of the big artists here. Okay, so it's got red bookend pages there. An image by Scott Collins. Here is all the creators that worked on the book: Scott Collins, Ethan Van Sciver, Angel Unzueta, Rick Burchett, and Justiniano. I think this is my very first taste of Justiniano's artwork. So here is the very first issue of Flash by Geoff Johns. That is issue 164. Actually, let's talk about the table of contents really quick. So the table of contents tells you what page you can find each issue starting at, of course. The book is 848 pages. Again, they leave out the issue number from the front cover, which is okay. I don't mind. I love looking at the full picture. But they don't put it in the back. So, now I've read these stories enough that I've got the issues number memorized, or the covers for what issues memorized. But for anybody coming into it, would be like, well, what issue is this? What issue am I reading here? And because of the full pages, you'll have to flip to another page number to see what page you're on, and then go back to the table of contents if you're interested in that. If you just want to read the whole story, that is completely fine. So why did I quadruple dip? Because to me, this reminded me of coming home every day from work instead of school this time. This is when I got back into comics, and I would come home and read Flash because it was so good. To me, it was just as good as Claremont's X-Men. Now, you know, I've done a few rereads since then. It still stands the test of time. It is an amazing run. It is a little slow burn at the beginning, but by the time you get to Blood Will Run, towards the end of Blood Will Run, which is this particular storyline right here, oh my god, it is a game changer. So the new omnibus collects issues 164 to 191 of Flash. It collects Flash Our Worlds at War #1, the Iron Heights one-shot, that's the one that's drawn by Ethan Van Sciver, Flash and Secret Files and Origins #3, and then the DC First Flash and Superman #1. Now, compared to the original printing of the first volume, which was a lot thinner, that only collects Flash 164 to 176, Our Worlds at War, Iron Heights, and The Secret Files number 3. So that's why it's a lot thinner than this. Now, what I hope they do is that they continue reprinting on, here's the Ethan Van Sciver Iron Hearts volume. This is a wonderful, wonderful issue. Is that they continue the printing all the issues that were originally orphaned in the Omnis and in the trade paperbacks. And that is after issue 225. After issue 225, we get Geoff Johns leaves the book. And he goes and he does this little crossover event called Infinite Crisis. However, it went on from 226 to 230 before Mark Waid came back. Now, those issues 231 and forward were reprinted because those are the Mark Waid run. But 226 to 230 have never been reprinted anywhere. This is that wonderful Scott Collins artwork. His lack of shadows really, at first, took me a while to get used to because I was like, man, I don't know if this guy's for me. His artwork is just too cartoony. But it really works with this book. It really, really works with Flash. Now, as I was saying, to me, they were as good. But why were they as good as Uncanny X-Men? And I know this is not a review of the book, but this is just my personal thoughts. Because he was able to take the rogues, all of Flash's villains, and make them all important characters. I mean, Pied Piper, the Weather Wizard, Captain Cold, just to name a few. The Trickster, like characters I didn't even care about. And then later on, I'm just like, ooh, where's Heatwave been? I haven't seen him in a while, and I'm a big fan of his. Oh man, Geoff Johns. And the twist in here, if you've never read this, don't spoil it for yourself, which is why I've had to edit this a few times. I've had to edit out the pages that would spoil even a little bit of something. Scott Collins again, and the problem with the binding, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Don't spoil this for yourself, because it is a wonderful story that deserves you to read it and make up your own mind whether it's amazing or not. Now let's look at the back here for the extras, because I think all they did for the extras was just keep the Secret Files stuff here. It does retail for $99.99. I don't know how many volumes there will be. This one's volume 1. And like I said, I would love if they collect orphaned issues, or if they lead you all the way up until Flashpoint. That would be cool. All that stuff that was not previously collected. Because Flash Volume 3, the original one, ends with issue 225. So I want more. I want them to go all the way, even collect Mark Waid stuff in oversized format, and go all the way until Flashpoint. That would be awesome. Now let's talk about the binding, because I know you noticed that page. It is sewn binding, but it's got the same issue that the Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo had, and that is the immense amount of glue that they use down here to keep it down. So that ribbon, the eye doesn't really bend that much. So that's why you're getting some gutter loss. And that leads us to pages like this with gutter loss. And it's not like there's a lot of splash pages within the book, but when you have things like this, and honestly, the original printing was no better. Here's the original printing up top, and then the new printing at the bottom. I think this became a picture in a lot of the collected editions community, how gutter loss can affect your books, your artwork. And sad to say, because of the gluing down here, even the sewn pages couldn't help it. So that really stinks. It is a little bit better. I'm not sure if you could tell or not. The only other difference, by the way, is that the pages, or the paper here in the original printing, are thicker than the pages that they use here. Not that it's bad. This is actually some really good paper, but the pages within here are thicker than they are here. So for the most part, it really doesn't affect it. And once you get to the middle, it's fine. It's usually the back pages or the very front pages that are affected by it. Luckily, there's not that many splash pages within this story. It's all broken down by panels and things like that. But I did want to show you an instance of how it can affect the artwork. But yeah, for the most part, you're looking at pages like that. And much like the case of, let's make sure I don't flip through any spoilers. Of the Batman Omnibus, you may have to hold it down a little bit to read some of the word bubbles. So, that is something to keep in mind when you purchase this book. But as far as the story, oh man, so damn awesome. And that was the contents of the book, the binding, and a quick comparison of the previous releases of the Omnibus. And you can purchase the book from cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Cheap Graphic Novels Black Friday sale is continuing all through December, so there's still time to save up to 95% off thousands of books. Additional books will be added throughout the month, so be sure to check back often and stay tuned to CGN on social media to be the first to know when the new books have been added to the sale. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button, notifications button to let you know when our videos are going up and live. Join us every Thursday for our panel shows where we discuss either comic books, manga, anime, video games, or movies. We can be found on Patreon and on Redbubble if you enjoy the content of this channel and want to support us in different ways. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you for watching, and remember, if it's classy and cool, it must be near mint.